Welcome back to this episode of The Real Game. I am Matt Philbrick, your host as always. Today is a very special day. First of all, I've been off the air pretty much all summer. Took the summer off to do some other things. And my last episode, I think I recorded, was in early June. So it's good to be back recording today. I got to be honest with you. I haven't been able to really sleep too much the last couple nights because I've been so excited about recording this episode. And I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. But a few episodes back, I did an episode with a friend of mine where we talked about our favorite sports movies and we ranked them 1 through 5, I think. And, we just kind of discussed them as we went. At the top of my list, and this won't surprise anybody that knows me, I'm a basketball coach. I'm a huge basketball fan. I lived out in Indiana for a while and had the privilege of coaching there. So it won't surprise you when I say that my probably all-time favorite movie, but for sure sports movie, is the movie Hoosiers. And I grew up watching Hoosiers. Of course, it was made in 1986. The story of Jimmy Chitwood and Hickory, and just an awesome underdog story. And anybody who loves basketball knows what Hoosiers is. I've in fact, in the last 2 weeks, probably almost everybody I see, I say, hey, you ever seen the movie Hoosiers? Well, guess what? You're going to love my next podcast. So with me today is the real life Jimmy Chitwood, and that is Bobby Plump. Bobby, it's great to have you on the episode today. I'm so glad that you've been able to join me. Before I let you jump in here and tell your story, I just want to say you have. I'm looking at a piece of paper here. I really didn't have to print it out because I think I have most of this memorized, but I didn't want to forget anything. You have lived a very full life, and it seems like you have a ton of accomplishments here. Obviously, the Milan Miracle is what we're going to talk about today. You were named Mr. Basketball in 1954. You went to Butler University. You're named the most valuable player there a couple different years. You were inducted into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame in 1981. You played against some. You're an amazing player yourself. You've played against some guys that everybody would recognize. Welcome to the podcast, and introduce yourself. You really don't have to, but go wherever you want with your story.
Hey, Matt, it's my pleasure to be on your podcast. Thanks for that nice comments on some of my career. This story started for me back when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. My father taught school for 20 years, and then Mom died when I was 5. And he went to work for a pump company, and he was creating pumps to send out throughout the world. And he borrowed some wood, made a backboard, bought a goal and a basketball. And that was my Christmas present when I was in the 3rd or 4th grade. Now, I'm the last of 6 kids, and you know who got to play on that court last. Actually, it wasn't a court. We hung it up as high as we could get it, about 9 feet on our smokehouse. And then the yards went up like that. So to the left, we didn't have running water. We had a pump, and it had forks on it for the chain. Mm-hmm. If the ball went over there and hit, we weren't smart enough to cover up those spikes in there. If it went over there, we had to wait a couple, 3 weeks to get enough money to buy another basketball so
Absolutely.
We could play with it. And it had bladders in it and sewed together just like a football back then.
Yep.
So that started my interest in basketball. And I didn't live in Milan. Milan was a town of 1,100. I lived in a little town of Pierceville, Indiana. On a good day, we might have 100 people. And the kids at Milan didn't like us. They thought we were across the track kids. And I remember 2 of my teammates and a doctor's son in the 6th or 7th grade. My sister, who raised me, bought me a snowsuit, and I was proud of it. Man, it was warm. I had a nice hat. Well, they didn't like that because they didn't have one. They rubbed my face in the snow, and that's the last time I wore that suit.
Yeah.
And I kind of reminded them about that when I made the basketball team. And you know what? They conveniently forgot about that.
Sure.
They didn't know. They said, wasn't me. So that started my career, and had a nice career, 7th and 8th grade. As a freshman and a sophomore. Well, first, let me tell you that there were 7 seniors on our ball club when we won the state in 1954. And you could only dress 10 for the state tournament. You had 2 alternates, but they couldn't sit on the bench. They had to be in the stands. They got to play if somebody got hurt or something. My freshman year, I played B team, as my other 6 friends did. My sophomore year, we were still on the B team, and the varsity had 7 seniors on their ball club. Now, Indiana, as you know, basketball was king. We didn't have football playoffs. So the only state tournament people paid attention to was basketball.
Sure.
And from 1956 to 1988, we drew 1 million people to our state tournament every year. And every venue was sold out. The tournament was played at Butler Fieldhouse. It seated 15,000. And the second game of the season, our coach was maybe 40 years old. We thought he was an old man. The second game of the season, we lost the first game. Second game, we're playing a county rivalry. We're down 20 points, and myself and 2 of the other guys got a dress for the varsity. At halftime, the coach came in and pointed to the 7 seniors. Now, we're down 20 points, and he said, "Gentlemen, if you don't come back and make a game of this, I'm taking your uniform." Now, you didn't do that in Indiana the second game of the season. We got beat 82-43. He draped 7 uniforms on his arm and kicked 7 seniors off the ball club.
Wow, I bet that made some ripples.
Uproar. I mean, that created some much controversy. He moved myself and Bob Engel up to the starting 5. Oh, by the way, he brought the 2 best players back.
Well,
and
he had to save face somehow, didn't he?
That next game, we beat Batesville, which was the largest school in our county, and hadn't defeated them for 8 years.
Wow. We
played that same Osgood team 2 weeks later and beat them by 8.
Yep.
After losing 82-43. Yep. People now are excited. They thought this coach is a great guy.
Yeah.
2 weeks before that, they wanted to get him fired.
They were ready to run him out of town.
We had the best season Milan had ever had. We didn't. Our tournament goes, and it's a 1-class tournament. There were 752 schools in 1954, and the tournament goes sectional. You pare the teams down to 64 out of 752. Then it's a Sweet 16. So the 16 teams in the semi-state, and then the Final 4. And by the way, the college people called the Indiana High School Athletic Association and wanted to know if they copyrighted Sweet 16 and Final 4. And they hadn't. And that's the reason you get it on the college games now.
So that's where they got that.
Yep. So we didn't win the sectional because I was home with the flu. They wouldn't let me get out of bed. 3 of the other guys have recovered some, but we got beat by a team that we defeated during the season. So we didn't, as sophomores, we didn't get a go through, but 7 of us are coming back.
Sure.
And people are excited. They're looking forward to our junior year. Well, the superintendent had a problem with the coach. He fired him a month after the season. He didn't do that in Indiana either after a successful season.
And he'd been there for quite a while, right?
He had been there for 4 years. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And they hired an individual named Marvin Wood, who was only 24 years old. had a 50-50 record at a place you'll recognize, Larry Bird's hometown, French Lick, Indiana. He came in under adverse circumstances. The old coach that was fired, he's living in Milan, coaching 3 miles away, and his wife had a beauty parlor in Milan.
Oh, boy.
He went down. It wasn't a barber shop that they went down to. It was a hamburger joint, Arkenberg's. And the downtown coaches had their coffee cups up there with their names on it. And Mr. Grinstead, that's the old coach, he went down there every morning. Marvin Wood never went down there. Woody, as we called him, changed our whole system. Mr. Grinstead was run and gun, score more points than the other team, fundamentals. We never heard of it.
Yeah.
Woody graduated from Butler University, where Tony Hinkle was there from 1920 to 1970. And from 27 to 70, he was head football, head baseball, head basketball, and athletic director. And he had a Hinkle system offense. So if we didn't have a break, we started practicing. If we didn't have a break, we'd go through this offensive system, which had 5 different plays. In addition to that, and the reason we won the state tournament was Marvin Wood, our coach. Okay.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why as we get through this story. Woody had never played a zone defense in his life. He graduated from Butler. Mr. Hinkle didn't believe in a zone. He wouldn't play it. So we worked on the man-to-man all preseason. And after 2 games playing the man-to-man, Woody decided we couldn't play that man. We won him, but not by very much.
Yeah.
So what did he do? Most coaches say my way or the highway. He went to our 8th grade coach and asked him if he would come up and teach the kids his own defense. Mark Combs was his name. He said no. Woody said no. Why? He said the kids already know it. Woody said, I don't. Would you come up and teach me the zone defense?
Right. So
we worked on that zone. Woody brought in some of his man-to-man principles. He also brought in a full court zone trap, a half court zone trap that John Wooden used pretty successfully at UCLA. And the last game of the season, we're playing that Osgood, that county rival that beat us as sophomores. They got a bunch of big guys, and he didn't want us to get hurt the last game going into the sectional. So he said, this is what we're going to do. He said, Bob, I want you to go to center court. Ingle, 10-second line out of bounds line. Kraft, 10-second line out of bounds line. Trip that corner and white that corner. And you thought Dean Smith invented that 4-corner probably. Woody put it in so we wouldn't get hurt. It worked so well that we beat him 35-17 using a 4-corner offense.
Yep.
Milan had never won a game in the regional in the history of our school.
Wow.
That second level.
Yep.
We went all the way to the Final Four of Marvin Wood's first year.
Wow.
And 53 was more like the movie, Matt, than 54.
Yep. Okay.
In 53, we drew for the regional Knightstown Memorial. It's a home for orphan soldiers and sailors, children. They had us down, let me see, 9 points with 1 minute and 48 seconds to go. We used the full court trap zone, stole the ball 3 times, hit a couple of free throws. We get within 2 points. We have the ball. We throw the ball in, and the timer forgot to start the clock. 5,000 fans are standing, screaming, throwing things on the floor. They estimated maybe 10 or 11 seconds ran off. The officials saw it. They went over to the scorer's bench. We thought 10 minutes, Pat. We're in the huddle wondering what's going on.
Sure.
And they never took any time off the clock with zeros showing on the clock. Ray Kraft, a substitute that year, hit a layup and tied the game. First overtime, it's tied. Now, fans were leaving when we're down 9 points because we've been there 4 times before and never won a game. Second overtime back then was sudden death, Matt. You could hit a free throw. They hit a free throw. You hit another free throw, and you're the winner.
Yeah.
That's all it was. I hit 2 free throws. We won the first game in the history of Milan High School, beating the orphan school.
That's awesome.
And we had a weekly paper in our county, and the sports editor was Tiny Hunt. He only weighed about 320. His car went down the road sideways, kind of, and his headline came out the next day and says, "Milan steals from orphans."
Nice.
And basically we did. We had an extra 10 or 11 seconds. That night, we won by 2. First game of the semi-state, that Sweet 16, we won in overtime. So here's a double overtime, a 2-point, and an overtime. And then that night, it's still a record. David Halberstam, the reason I know that, David Halberstam, the Pulitzer Prize writer, called me back in the 80s and wanted to know some statistics about Milan. And I looked it up. We beat them 43-21. But the record is we held them to 2 field goals, and they were 2 for 51.
Wow.
2 for 51.
Yep.
And
that's
then
unreal.
In the in the afternoon game of the state tournament, where you play 2 games every Saturday to win the tournament, and you play 3 at least in the sectional. So you have to win 9 games total to win a tournament, and we only played 20 all year, and that's from March 1st to the end of March.
Okay.
So we were defeated. We go back. We'd done something that no team from Indiana, from Milan had ever done. And Woody, we did not know our free throw percentage, our field goal percentage, points per game. Woody never gave them out.
Yep.
He didn't tell us. We had no idea what those. Now think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it worked so well, you didn't have to worry about your percentages if on the free throw line or field goals or things. They kept asking. Milan is 80 miles from Indianapolis, and TV people were coming down. Well, TV was never in Milan, Indiana before that. They kept asking Woody about who's your leading scorer, how much, and what's a free, and he wouldn't tell them. But in 54, we're back to the Sweet 16, and this sports announcer said, "Well, Woody, don't you keep statistics?" And he said, "Yeah, I got them." The guy said, "Well, what are they?" Woody said, "They're good enough."
Good enough.
Wouldn't tell them.
Yep.
So in 54. See, 53, we had those close games. In 54, we had a 15-point winning margin by the time we hit Muncie Central. And Muncie Central has won more state tournaments than any school in Indiana. Yep. And we used the 4-corner offense as an offensive weapon. We played Christmas Addicts with a guy you might remember. His name was Oscar Robertson. Yep. In the finals of the Sweet 16, we were ahead of them 20-15 at halftime. We go into the 4-corner and we beat them 65-52. So we used the 4-corner as an offensive weapon. We beat Terre Haute Gusmar in the afternoon game. We were ahead of them 5 points at half, like 22-17 or something. We beat them 60-48. We got Muncie Central down 6 points at halftime, 23-17. We go into the 4-corner. It's the only time it didn't work. They were the only team to ever come back on us and get ahead. In the 3rd quarter, after leading 23-17, we're down 28-26. We score 3, they score 11. I get across the 10-second line shortly into the 4th quarter, and Woody's got his hands up, and I know that meant for me to hold the ball. Now, think about this. 15,000 fans are standing, screaming their heads off.
Yep.
I stood there when we're down 28-26. I stood there for 4 minutes and 17 seconds.
That's not what they want to see.
No, it was, and we're down 2 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Ray Kraft hit a bucket. We stole the ball using that full court press. I hit 2 free throws. We're up 30-28. We miss a shot. They score 30-30. I get across the 10-second line, 1 minute and 48 seconds are going. I was still on the clock.
Yeah.
Woody's got his hands out there, and they let me stand there until 18 seconds to go.
Yeah.
We called timeout. And by the way, the only factual thing in the movie Hoosiers is the last 18 seconds after the ball was thrown in. We didn't play any of those schools, and Woody never had a technical.
Right.
And if you follow the coach's instructions, everything comes out well, right?
Yeah.
Muncie Central is the worst game I played in that final 4 games. I had 71 points in the previous 3 games.
Yep.
I had 6 going into the fourth quarter, and I scored until I scored the last 4, and we had 10. But anyway, in the huddle, Woody said, "Here's what we."
Just to ask a quick question, I had read somewhere that you were injured that last game. Is that true? That you had an ankle injury?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't have an injury.
Okay.
I don't remember this, but Woody said shortly into the game, I'm back on defense, and their big guy ran over me and knocked me to the floor. And he said, that's what affected your game. But I don't know whether that's true.
That's probably why you don't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Woody said, here, Ray, you take the ball out of bounds and throw it to me, Bob. Woody said, now, if you just dribble around till there are 5 or 6 seconds to go. If you can, shoot with enough time left that maybe we could tip it in.
Yep.
Our starting center said, and Woody always took suggestions if he thought it was a good thing. Our starting center, Gene White, who was all of 5'11", said, Woody, why don't we get on the left side and clear that out? Woody said, that's a good idea. That's what I said. Let's go over it again. He says, Ray, you take it out and throw it to Bob. I'm supposed to have ice water in my veins. Guess who took the ball out of bounds? I did. But Ray got it back to me, and the ball went through with 3 seconds to go. It's called the fifth way. I probably shot that shot 1,000 times by then. And we went back on defense. It wasn't as sophisticated back then. They didn't call time. Yep. We went back. We had no celebration. We went back on defense, and they threw the ball in, and Leon Aguilana for their team was about to throw it 3/4 of the length of the floor, and the buzzer went off, and then we celebrated.
Yeah.
But Woody did all of those things that most coaches wouldn't have gone to the 8th grade coach and asked for anything. Sure. And then he used his innovation. He's the reason. Now you have to have talent, or you're not going to go to the Final Four 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my coaches used to say, you're not going to win the Kentucky Derby if you're riding on Eeyore. So there had to have been some talent there, along with obviously genius coaching, along the way.
Yeah, he was. If he'd have told me to throw it in the stands, I'd have thrown it in the stands.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's an incredible story. It's hard to believe that after all these years, you remember just the details that you remember. You've probably told this story a few times.
Man, I have told that story. In fact, I just came, we own a restaurant in the Broad Ripple area of Indianapolis called, of all things, Plump's Last Shot. Yeah. My son operates it. I just left 2, 4, 6, 8 women. That one of them came a month ago, and then she wanted to know if she could bring the others back. So I told what I'm telling you. I just finished telling that story.
Well, it's a great story. It's not just a story. It's real life, and it's a great account of what happened there those 2 years now. That last play, the movie calls that the picket fence. Is that what you called it when you guys ran that play?
Let me tell you where the picket fence came from. We didn't have a play like that, but we did have an out of bounds play if it's under our basket. Mm-hmm. We lined up three guys on the free throw line. It's the only time I like to take the ball out of bounds under our basket. But we had three guys on the free throw line, a guy behind them that would rake off either right or left. You pass it to him, and the guy taking it out of bounds come back behind those three, and he returns it, and you got an open shot.
Yeah.
We called it number one.
Okay.
Picket fence sounds a lot more exciting.
Sure. Yeah. It makes for good movies. So after high school, you went on to play at Butler for 4 years, correct?
I went to Butler. I turned down IU, Purdue, Michigan State, Cincinnati, Tennessee, and about 20 other colleges, and went to Butler University. And I had scholarships to all of these other schools. And at Michigan State, I had a summer job that I would have made half as much as my father made all year.
Yeah.
Butler, I was a shy, bashful kid in high school. I didn't know how to talk with people. When you come from a town of 100 people, there's not much diversity.
Sure.
And I thought I could play at Butler because I knew the Hinkle system. They did not have scholarships then.
Okay.
So I went to Butler without a scholarship, but Mr. Hinkle wrote me a handwritten letter. By the way, Mr. Hinkle was only at Butler from 1920 to 1970. From 1927 to 1970, he was head football, head baseball, head basketball, and athletic director.
No wonder there's a few things named after him.
Yeah, he wrote me a handwritten letter, and it said, "Dear Bob, congratulations, you and your team. I got probably as big a kick out of that as you did. Paragraph. Now make up your mind to come to Butler University. We have a bunch of swell kids here, and I have a man interested in you financially. Paragraph. Now call me when you want to come up." He didn't call me. Call me when you want to come up. Sincerely, Paul D. Tony Hinkle. P.S. If any of your teammates want to come, bring them along. Now, the secret to that is that the man interested in me financially put money in the bursar's office to pay my bills at Butler University as if it was a scholarship. I mean, I didn't get the money. I never saw it. And Ray Kraft went to Butler with me. He didn't play very much, but we had a tuition job of sweeping the floor. And if you coached in Indiana, you could not get a ticket into the semi-state or state tournament unless you had some connections. Right. We got to sweep the floor for all of those, and we got in free to see all of it. Yeah. And a side effect. I started dating a girl after my sophomore year, and she went to Hanover. I was in the Sigma Chi house, and I'd call her, and then she'd call me back collect, and I never paid a phone bill. Our senior year, we decided to get married, so she moved to Indianapolis, and next time I saw Mr. Hinkle, I said, "Mr. Hinkle, Janine has decided to move to Indianapolis, and we're going to get married after I graduate." And he said, "Thank heaven Hanover came to Butler. I'm tired of those phone bills." So, that's a great story. Yeah, I had a good career there. I set single game career scoring records, was selected to the East-West All-Star game at Madison Square Garden, 10 from the East, 10 from the West. And just to give your fans an idea of what the NBA was then, Archie, they drafted by areas back then, and Archie Dees from IU was the number one draft choice for the NBA. I roomed with him at New York when we played at Madison Square Garden. His offer, 1958, $8,000 a year. Teachers were signing for $4,000. Yeah. Bobby Leonard, the coach of the Pacers for all those years, he graduated from IU in 54, went to the Army, went to the NBA in 56. He played 7 years in the NBA, and his highest salary, $13,000.
Wow. How far we've come, huh?
How far we've come. They had the College All-Star Globetrotter game, and Abe Saperstein was calling when we were in New York. They had 18 games, and you can make $100 a game. Yep. I called Mr. Hinkle, and you had to know Mr. Hinkle. He had fish hooks in his pocket. He never paid for anything. And I said, Mr. Hinkle, I can make $1,800. He said, that's a lot of money, Bob. But I have an appointment for you at Phillips 66 in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. When you get, I never heard of them. Didn't know. I didn't know they had a team. Archie Dees called Branch McCracken, the coach at IU, and Branch advised him and said, if you take that $8,000, they got you. You have no bargaining power. Okay. You're a pro. And he signed with Denver in our league and got $12,000 instead of $8,000. I found out Phillips was part of a National Industrial Basketball League. Most of it was out west. And the furthest west NBA was Minneapolis. But we had teams in New York. Cleveland was owned by George Steinbrenner, Akron Goodyear, Denver DC Truckers, Seattle Buchanan Bakers, San Francisco Investors, Wichita Vickers, Peoria Caterpillars, and Phillips 66. If you won that league, you qualified for the Olympic playoffs. The Olympics were controlled by AAU. Okay. Phillips won that. Phillips, and if you won it, you're the representative from the United States. You automatically get 5 players. Wow. Phillips won it in 1948. Peoria Caterpillars in 52, Phillips 66 in 56. And in 60, we qualified. And the first team we played was the College All-Stars. It was the first time they allowed other than college seniors to be on the College All-Star team. Okay. Yep. The seniors were Oscar Robertson and Jerry West. They weren't too bad. And Walt Bellamy was an underclassman. Terry Dishinger was an underclassman, and the big center from California. They beat us 8 points in the opening game, so we didn't get to go to the Olympics. Yeah. And I found out later that Phillips had a tradition, not just sending the players that made the team, but they sent all the players and their wives to every Olympic and paid expenses. Oh, wow. Yep. Almost got divorced.
Yeah, right.
But it was a great experience. Yeah. After not knowing they had a team from 1919, and a guy by the name of K.S. Boots Adams was on that team. In 1937, he became CEO of Phillips Petroleum Company. Every CEO of Phillips Petroleum Company until 2004 was an ex-basketball player. Every treasurer at Phillips Petroleum Company was an ex-basketball player until 2003. Yep. So they used it as a recruiting tool and going in. And I asked, the most anybody ever played there was 6 years because they wanted to get you out and start working. Yep. I played 3. John Barnhill, who played with Cleveland in our league then, I was playing defense, believe it or not, and I went up to block a shot. He hit me with an elbow on my ribs and my lung collapsed, so that ended my career. Oh, no. But I became the assistant coach, and since we were under AAU, the AAU and State Department sent us to Mexico for 3 weeks doing demonstrations. 2 years later, they sent us to the Middle East for 7 weeks doing exhibition basketball. Yep. And I know your listeners would appreciate this. Back then, when they told us we're going to the Middle East, Matt, we got the globe out and turned it around and find out where the hell the Middle East was.
What in the world are they talking about, right?
Yeah. But we traveled by private plane. We did exhibitions for our jobbers. Yep. And, the NBA was still traveling sometimes by bus. Sure. So Mr. Hinkle did me a good job.
Yeah. I want to ask you about a story that I heard, and I want you to verify whether it's true or not. So I had read somewhere that I think it was after your sophomore year at Butler, there was an incident where you were dating a girl. I don't know if that girl ended up being your wife or not, where there was perhaps a curfew violation on your part. And that actually saved your life. And is that true or not?
Well, that's a brief version of what it was. I was a Sigma Chi. Okay. And, Sigma Chi's and Phi Delts were the 2 fraternities on campus. There was only one dorm. It was a 3-story, very small. if you didn't live in a fraternity house or that dorm, you lived in town.
Okay.
So the women had curfews. They had to be in during the week by 10 and midnight every weekend. The school advanced the girls to 1 o'clock for this dance. It was a first and only dance because what happened, I came back and it wasn't my wife, by the way, that I dated then. This was a girl I started dating at Milan my sophomore year. I was in the house at 1:30. At 1:42, I left there at 1:30. I double dated, and this guy and myself took off. The house blew up at 1:42.
Wow. Yep.
Collapsed the whole, there was a 3-story house, collapsed the whole one end. And there were only 7 people there. There were 40 in our fraternity.
Wow.
But because of that dance, only 7 of them were there and nobody got injured. One guy fell to 3 stories, but a mattress fell on top of him and he didn't, when it collapsed.
Yeah.
We came back the next morning and there was we saw our fraternity brother at one of the stoplights and we hollered at him. He said, "Hey, the house blew up." And we said, "Yeah, ha. It did."
Yeah.
It blew up. They couldn't find me until then. And it was if we had curfew, I would have been out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd say God was watching over you that night for sure. So
yeah, no question about it.
Let's talk about just the movie briefly. There's a couple things that I wanted to ask you about that. So were you pretty involved in the filming of the movie? You know, like were you around?
Actually, I wasn't, Matt. The producer and writer and the director, one of them was from Bloomington, Indiana. Angelo Pizzo, the writer and co-producer, and David Anspall was from Decatur, Indiana. And if you lived in Indiana in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you lived that story. I mean, it was all over the place. They were fraternity brothers in the 60s at IU, and they thought, well, if we could make a movie like that, it'd be great. It took them 7 years to find somebody that were willing to produce the movie because all of the major studios said basketball movies don't go.
Wow.
They don't work. And the only reason that it got made, Matt, and by the way, I did show them where the final shot was from, but as far as consulting, no, I didn't have that. I did meet Gene Hackman. While I was there, I went up to him. They were filming on the other end at Butler, and he was down on the other end, and I said, "Mr. Hackman, my name's Bobby Plump." He said, "Get over here." He said, "This is what this movie's all about." He said, "I know one of your teammates, Bill Jordan." I said, "How do you know him?" Well, Bill has been an actor in Hollywood since 1963. He was on stage in New York. They asked Woody to be a consultant, but he was coaching the girls team at Notre Dame. And he didn't think he could take time out for it. So that was my only involvement with it.
Yeah. That's interesting. So there's a museum called the Milan 54 Museum. Obviously 54 is the year. Tell me about some of the things that,
well, it's interesting.
It's on my bucket list to go there, by the way, to go there and to your restaurant. So one of these days I'm going to make it out there. But yeah, tell me a little bit about the museum.
Well, the museum was started in 1998 by a lady that owned an antique shop in Milan. And it started just in the corner of her antique shop. And then they bought the Milan State Bank building that had been vacant. It's handicapped accessible now. They got 12 lockers that you can hear us talk to you. And they've got Dennis Hopper's bed that he slept in when he was in the hospital. They show the movie Hoosiers and they show the Milan 54 final game in the back room. And they have an interesting 8-foot tall, 4-foot wide board there that 2 engineering students students at Purdue University hand wrote all 752 schools and followed them out to the state tournament.
Unbelievable.
Since 1998, they have had visitors from all 50 states and 38 foreign countries, including Saudi Arabia, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand.
Wow.
It is. They have so much memorabilia there. Yep. My book was published in 1998. The revision of that book's coming out next month.
Okay.
They have that. They have Marvin Wood's book. They got memorabilia of the water tower. They got bobbleheads of all of our players on the 54 team.
That's great.
You would enjoy it, Matt.
Yeah. I hope one day to be one of the visitors there to check that place out for sure. I've been to the actual gym in Knightstown, Indiana. That was actually coached a game there one time. That was great.
Well, the museum at Milan probably has 20 times more memorabilia than the gym at Knightstown. Yeah,
the Knightstown gym is nice. Like it's fun to be in, but as far as memorabilia from the movie and stuff, there isn't a lot. There isn't a lot there, but
you're right.
It's still great. I also was able to find on YouTube when I was doing a little research the complete game before the final game when you played Terre Haute Gertzmeyer, I believe it was. I watched the whole game, and then I was able to find the actual clip of you in the championship game making that final shot. So great. It was great. I probably watched it 20 times. So
if anytime you watch it and it doesn't go in, you let me know, will you?
It went in. I mean, so far so good. It went in every single time. Nothing's changed. So that kind of leads me to my next and last question. All along this journey that you've had an incredible life, you've met all kinds of people, you've experienced great things. Anything you'd do different?
No, I really wouldn't. I've been blessed with so many things throughout my lifetime. My father died at 65. I had two brothers that died at 53 and 54. I'm 88 years old, so I have just been very, very fortunate. The coaches I played for was more about teaching what life's about than basketball and things. And
sure.
Not many people have that opportunity. Both at college, high school, Phillips 66. I don't think there's anything I would do differently. We had 8 grandchildren. We're expecting our 8th great grandchildren.
Congratulations.
Grandchild in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Now, to think that this kid from Pierceville, Indiana, a town of 100, who never had a telephone when he graduated from high school, never did have running water, didn't get electricity until I was 13. Not able to, I was a shy, bashful kid, not able to talk with people, but the experiences of athletics that I was taught, and I think it's true. If athletics is taught correctly, it mirrors life.
Sure.
Nobody ever wins everything they ever tried, but they do have an opportunity to come back and try again.
Yes.
And I've been blessed. I appreciate it. And 8 of our 12, well, now it's 7. One guy died a month ago, but 8 of our 12 was still alive a month ago.
Yep. You guys get together some?
We've had an annual reunion every year since 1955. We just had our 70th at Milan. They had redone the entrance of the gym. The governor came in, ex-governor came in. Bob Costas sent a video. So did Jim Nance. In that town of 1,000, 2,000 people came to that 70th anniversary. We signed autographs for 2.5 hours after the presentation. So,
wow.
Yeah, we've been together quite a lot.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, In closing, I'd just like to say thank you for being on my podcast. It's my privilege and honor to have you on here. It's like a piece of kind of a piece of my childhood sitting in front of me talking to me. It was great.
By the way, Matt, it's really been my pleasure. I mean, people have been so nice to me, and it's just been a great experience. And I appreciate your call, and glad to be on your program.
All right, thanks. Take care of yourself. Have a great day.
You too, Matt. Bye now.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. So until next time, good luck, coaches, and coach on.